like stammering is also an like like an invisible thing, right? Like there are no physical markers on the body that can tell the others that we stammer the first time they see us, right? So the fact that it is sort of hidden, I think like for like a lot of us, that sort of gives us the impetus to like hide it further. If they can't see it, I can pass as a fluent individual. I can like you know avoid a situation, and that itself instills a sense of stigma in us, where we are not willing to like you know accept the fact that we stammer. um uh like I would like to invite Vikas from the uh, core team of TISA who attended this summit called the Thrive Summit by Sarathi, which sort of did, dealt with a similar topic. Vikas, would you like to share your experiences at the summit and how it sort of impacted your views around stammering and everything?
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Rusha and Vidya, and sorry for being late. And it's so good to see that we are doing so much brainstorming, discussion, and thought-provoking discussions. And it's so great that you uh, took this initiative. So now to go back to Sarthi Thrive Summit, when we uh, went there, it was November last year, and Sarthi is an uh, o- organization. They works with folks having disability, and they mainly help them to get a job. So they work with many companies and get them placed for the job. And so then this summit was to share the real meaning of disability and what kind of job opportunities they have and so on and so forth. So when from TISA we were more than like 10 folks, and thanks to Prowess, he gave us this opportunity, and he gave some sponsorship as well to make sure that it will happen. So the learning was this one, when we saw on the stage, there was one guy who was blind, and he was running his own business at scale. Scale, I'm saying he is having 100 plus employees. He is going abroad doing business deals and so on and so forth. When we first saw that he is blind, and there was one more guy running business at the same scale, and he was deaf and dumb. He can't speak. He can't listen. Then how he was doing that? He was having one assistant with me who was making him understand in sign language if anyone speaks. And then when this guy who was deaf and dumb, he was explaining him in the sign language, and then he was saying to the other person. So when we saw that, then we realized he how he is doing. He has just found that he has all the mind and brain in this world to do the work that he really wants to do. That's just a one thing that he can't do. But he has hired someone for that work, and then he is running business at a scale then. So then, like, we were so much thinking about stammering, and then we were like, hey, we will just get stuck in a few words. That's it. Like, the words will come a bit late. That's it. Like, there's nothing else. If the other person will not understand it, we can repeat, we can share that he we stammer, and then we may get some block. Then, because, like, when we are in our own a small world, then we think a lot about stammering. But when we see so many folks with different kinds of disability, and then they are just saying is that they just lack one thing, and then they can just fill that gap. And so like, it's like that also, like, as simple, if say someone who is very tall, and they can't find their shoe size in the normal shop, then they will go to someone who can make the shoe for them, like, custom shoe. That's it. Like, it's just like, there's a one thing that we don't have, that's most of the folks will have. Then that's why it was really an eye-opening to see stammering as it is, and not like, adding psychological problems to stammering in our mind. But that's the one learning. Second was that we got to know about inclusivity departments at various companies, where they want to have folks with different kinds of like, disabilities, so that their workplace will be diverse. And then they have seen it. If the workplace is diverse, then employees are more empathetic, else they are more likely, if they will not find anyone speaking in with a logic, in their term, that's a logic, then they become very rude. Like, they are not so much accepting. And but when, like, we are having diversity in our team, then employees are more calm, more understanding, more accepting, and in that way the results are coming good. Else they are having so much ego, and they think that they are always right. So they then learned all these new things. So I will not take much time. Like, these are a few things that like, we have learned, and they give us a slot to give a speech in the end for like 5 to 7 minutes, where we represented us, and we had our stall, and then where we share about, like, stampering with Broadband Fox over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vikas, for sharing your experiences. I think Dr. Sachin has something to share, so please go ahead.
Before my connection conks out, I just want to share a couple of my thoughts. First of all, I want to thank all of you, especially Rusha and Vidya, and all of you who shared your thoughts here, and also those who have not spoken so far, because I'm sure they are listening very attentively. I just wanted to share these couple of ideas that intersectionality, of course, is bound to be there between gender and stammering. It's also bound to be there between stammering and age, uh, occupation. For example, a carpenter stammering may not be a big thing, but a doctor stammering could be a big news. In the same way, a young man stammering is one thing, but a father of two children, when he stammers in the parent-teacher meeting, that could be a very different kind of experience. So intersectionality is bound to be there between all these factors because life itself is a organic whole, and it's only for the sake of convenience that we take chunks out like gender, employment, regionality or languages spoken. And of course, we need to study all this. We definitely need to study the interactions between gender and stammering, the language spoken, the region you come from, all those things. But I would say, that these are very good starting points, but they must not become ending points. For example, identity, um, region, language, gender, all this is fine, and we need to be well conversant with all these things. Why stop there? We should definitely go beyond these social labels and look for an identity which is more enduring, because languages change, ages, our age changes. Gender can also change nowadays, not a big deal. But so we have to find out our identity which is beyond these changes, which can't be changed so easily, and which are not handed down to us by society. And many of people in TISA who have done Vipassana, they are on the threshold of discovering a new identity. So, in the same way, I think that if
And I think,
Yeah, I think his line got cut off.
yes.
Yeah. So yes,
He's
I
back now.
totally agree with.
can you
He's
repeat my
back.
last word?
You were
Yeah,
talking about
can you repeat my last
Vipassana.
sentence,
Yeah.
Rusha or Vidya?
Yeah, you were talking about
Yeah, so this is what I was saying, that
discovering new
why
identities
stop
in
with
people.
yes, exactly. So why stop with the gender alone? Why not go beyond that and discover our deeper identity? In the same way, we can study about social model, medical model of stammering. But why stop there? We can go beyond that. We can even look at stammering and think of it as opportunity, because stammering is whatever we make out of it. It can be a problem, it can be opportunity, uh, it can be a opportunity to have a closer look at ourselves. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
And lastly, one thing I have to add is, we may know everything about stammering, but our job is still not complete till we know the stammerer, the person who's stammering, what kind of person he or she is. Because a lot depends on the person, how she or he turns stammering into what kind of things. I mean, a lot depends on the person who is undergoing these experiences. And I know it's not easy thing. It depends on your age, the stage in life, your experiences, and how much have you suffered, and have you learned anything from your suffering, and are you now ready to?
Yes, I think he got disconnected again. We will hear more from Dr. Sachin when he joins again, but I think he really sort of like summarized quite a bit of like what we were talking about, and I think knowing about the these intersectionalities is actually a way to create a more enduring space where people will feel safe to like explore their deeper identities and everything. So thank you so much for him for that, to him for that. So moving on, so my next question is to Yatharth. Uh, uh, Yatharth is the one who is actually leading the TOPG program right now, and in this phase, I sort of like want us all to reflect and understand about the self-help spaces that are created by TISA. So my question to you, Yatharth, is that how do you think offline self-help groups are different from online? And what are the like maybe you can start with what are the efficacies of having self-help groups are, and then maybe sort of move on to talk a little bit about how online spaces are different than the offline ones.
Yeah, sure,
Please go ahead.
Rusha. So first of all, I think stammering in itself is a very nice uh, impediment. From now on, let's not call it disability, impediment. Thanks to Amit sir for explaining it in a really nice and elaborated and easy way. So yeah, stammering in itself is such an impediment that self-help or helping others who stammer. I think a stammerer can give a more like a better advice to another stammerer than than a therapist, because a stammerer a stammerer has lived the same thing that the other has gone through, that someone is going through, and if he has overcame it through certain actions, through certain things, then they can even pass it on. And of course, we are in itself in nature empathetic, because we like that's how we are. I mean, as a stammerer, we don't want to, hurt anyone and help others because we haven't got the same help in the early days. So if someone wants it, we don't want that other goes through the same hardships as we did, right? So self-help and being in communities like these, it's the perfect way to work on your stammering and be in the in here you are in the safest environment, be it online and be it offline. I I'm sure each one of here agrees with me. So self-help, now comes the self-help thing that, yeah, I mean, TISA or other organizations that do self-help. Okay. So in these organization, having a structure is very important because there are a lot of things that TISA offers. Okay. And at the end, we a newcomer that comes to these online platforms, he or she doesn't know how to go on with the things that we offer. So that's why be being a help for others, the newcomers, is where we need to where we are working on. Okay, so uh, now let's talk about offline and online, like the how online activities differ from offline activities, and what are the mindset of people during offline and online activities. Okay, so like in online, it's a different space. Like you are in a, like Amit sir says it, that a stammering is affected by a place, a person, or a topic. So here comes the place part. Okay, in online, you are in a space of a room. Okay, you are in your comfortable zone. You can just go away at any time if you really want to, if you are not in that mode. Okay, but offline you have to face some other you know other situations too. Like if you are in a crowded place, you have to focus on the moving things too. Okay, and with that you have to focus on the speech part, the communication part, even the things that you are talking about. All these things you have to think about in your head. But online, of course, there are not all of that factors included. But yeah, let's come to the online thing, the cons of online. Okay, so in online, the other person can't really think that if you are struggling, like it can be like it's your internet issue or what it is. Why is it having a gap in words? Okay, and the other person, when they are not able to understand what is happening to you, that can create a difficult space for yourself. Okay, so in any way, disclosing that we are stammering, be it online or be it offline, in any space, if you are in a meeting online, if you are amongst a group of people, disclosing that you will be facing some issues, you will be facing some difficulties, blocks and all. So it's always better to disclosing it beforehand in both the offline and online cases. And yeah, that's that. I will keep it short, and yeah, that's from my side.
Thank you so much, Yatharth, for your insights. And something that you said, like very quickly, I will just like speak about something. So, like something that you said about like internet issues. So, like back in university during COVID, so like we had a professor who would ask us randomly to like read. And I was very scared because I hadn't disclosed to the class that stammer. So once he asked me and I stammered very badly and then I typed, I'm having internet issues, I'm sorry, and I skipped out of it. So thank you so much for that point. This like uh, Vidya, over to you for the next section.
So thank you so much, Rusha. I mean, Yadat and everyone who, who spoke their views out. So I will open this question to everyone. Like, how do you think social media can help in, making this space more, I mean, like, to take away the stigma, because we are all there in social media in one way or the other. And we want to talk about our stammer more to non-PWS. And so what do you think, like how we can make use of that space?
So Vidya, can I go first? I
Yeah,
have
please.
something burning inside the head actually when it comes to social media. So I think one way we can do is people generally like storytelling, right? So we are ingrained from the very beginning. We get attracted to somebody who can present a good story or whose voice or the way they say something, it draws metaphors, it brings in the characters. And with all the stress, with all the things that are it's a crazy outworld there, and humor plays a big role. So when it comes to social media, I think something as sensitive and serious and enduring as stammering, if we can bring in the facts along with storytelling and humor, I think it has a better outreach. So that involves each of us to take on the roles that we have not done. In a way, you are breaking away from your framework as well. Somebody might think that, okay, I am a person who is quite a serious one. Somebody might think I am a person who is fairly submissive. But when you take on roles to communicate, you step out from your shoes. And what better way than social media where you can highlight these things? It reaches out to people. Your authenticity, it hits people. I'm sure when you make a skit, 100 people, a crowd of 100 people, 60 to 70 might not even understand the things that you're saying, but it will definitely hit the 30 who, if your intention has been a genuine one. Uh, So yeah, that way I feel we should make use of the social media. Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks.
much, Pramod. Yeah, I think creativity plays a very, I mean, huge role in, bringing in a kind of uh, a palatable way for people to, understand our journey. So thank you so much. So we have any other comments or questions about this topic? Yes, Dr. Amit.
I just wanted to return to a topic about identity, the stammering identity. I think that's a very, it intersects with so many things. It is part of intersectionality. It's part of a lot of things. And I have a very specific thing to kind of say about that. I think identity is a very complicated construct in the stammering community. And it's a complicated construct because of, to me, one very big reason. It's not the only reason, but it's a very big reason. I think the big reason is that stammering is variable. It's variable, it is cyclical, it is possible to hide. A lot of us who stammer, even those of us who have a very frequent and a fairly physically tense stammering pattern, don't experience that in every situation. There are lots of subcultures in which we dwell where we experience near perfect speech fluency, or near full, let's just say near full, not perfect, near full speech fluency. So I think that signals in the body, in our bodies, that there is potential for more fluent speech. There is a reason why a lot of us gravitate and who are very keen to develop the capacity, the facility for producing more fluent speech reliably. And I say that reliably very specifically because our bodies are capable of generating near full speech fluency just like anybody else who doesn't stammer. The difference is we cannot do it reliably. The difference is that it's a neurologically coded behavior, genetically, neurologically, biologically based behavior, but it is environmentally cued, signaled. An environment is both external environment, people, places, topics, and also internal environment, the bodily states, the emotions we experience, certainly speech, the circuitry, the neural circuitry for speech and the neural circuitry for emotions is very, very tied up so that everything goes through speech. Laughter goes through speech, crying goes through speech, all emotions go through speech. So it's this environmentally cued behavior that is neurologically encoded. But I think because we have this variable cyclical, we have a condition that varies in frequency, intensity, and it's also cycles. There'll be lots of phases in our life, days, weeks, when we experience more fluent speech, days we experience less fluency. So it's both variable and cyclical. That is very difficult then to take. I mean, that makes acceptance very complicated. Because first of all, it complicates acceptance because we can very freely, and because of a lot of us can generate spontaneous speech or generate spontaneous fluency through avoidant behavior. It's called avoidant fluency. Because we can present as mild, in quotes, mild, whatever that means, because we're hiding it. Some of us are genuinely mild because we don't have a big stuttering pattern. Some of us are able to generate a mild stutter and move through situations because we have a very strong avoidant profile. But either way, it signals to the body potential. It signals to the body that what we actually have is essentially a fluent body, which sometimes, and in some situations, experiences disfluency. So identity is inherently a complicated construct when you are able to hide the condition and where the condition itself spontaneously presents variably and cyclically across most environments. That is why I think I see this as this conflict. Many years ago, Joseph Sheehan, who's one of the premier psychologists who gave us the notion of the iceberg, the stammering iceberg, he called it an approach avoidance conflict. We're constantly struggling with this conflict between approaching communication and avoiding communication, right? So I see this as rendered as being the conflict between presenting our innate biological identity, which is that of a person who stammers, and our desired social identity, which is a person who is fluent. This conflict, this identity conflict, is with us for a very long time. And it's sort of the birth of the approach avoidance conflict. It's related to the approach avoidance conflict quite a bit. So I just wanted to basically say that even when you strip away all of the incredibly important and robust layers that are part of the composite construct of identity, all the intersectionality, the gender, the race, the class, the ethics, the occupation, all of those things, even when you strip away all of those things, which is impossible to do. But if you theoretically do that, you're still left with this basic identity issue, basic identity conflict between, am I a person who is stammering the anomaly, or is fluency the anomaly? And whatever is the anomaly, we want to be able to sort of like move beyond that. That's why a lot of us invest in speech therapy, if you can only be more reliably fluent. So identity, I think, is an inherently fraught construct and makes acceptance very complicated.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amit. Yeah, I mean, it's a very complex, layered way of looking at stammering, and thank you. Rusha, would you like to share your views on this?
Yes, like listening to this was like very uh, like cathartic for me, because like I agree, and I also found so many things that I agree with right now. And like the thing that you said, Dr. Bajaj, like about this confusion at the base level, that like whether fluency is the problem or is it disfluency, like which side to pick. This sort of reminded me of this one philosophy I had read a few years ago, Chinese philosophy. I can't quite remember the name of the philosopher who had a dream of a butterfly, and when he woke, he sort of posed this existential question, that am I the man who is dreaming of the butterfly, like, or am I a butterfly who is dreaming of the man? Like that is the existential confusion, and right now I can relate this with whatever you said with stammering as well. And I think like this is a quite a like an interesting spark to rethink about our uh feelings of stigma and also pride about like being, or like just being there with stammering. So thank you so much for that. And we are actually at the end of the session. Yatharth, yes, you can go ahead with whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Just one point that adding to Amit sir, in this conflict, voluntary stammering is something that grounds us to who we are. Like uh, like when we think of us as a person who don't stammer, and like when our stammering just spontaneously happens, then voluntary stammering is the one that helps us with the conflict. That yeah, we can even voluntarily stammer, and that makes us that's anchor to that acceptance part, right? So when we are too much fluent and we don't want to be surprised by our stammer, just do voluntary stammering, and yeah, okay, I can still stammer. I'm still a stammerer. Oh, thank God.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Arthar, for pointing that out. I think that's $1 million point. I think I when I teach my graduate course since stammering, I talk about acceptance as a verb. We think about it as an we think of it as a noun, but how is it a verb? Like how, what are some acceptance practices? Acceptance is very complicated. It's fluid, it's complicated. We may be more accepting in some situations, less accepting in others. Acceptance is also intellectual, emotional, behavioral. We can embrace it intellectually. We can emotionally also be okay with the fact that we are people who stammer, will remain people who stammer for the rest of our lives. We can have an intellectual, emotional embrace of it. But we are so conditioned with avoidance behaviors that it becomes very difficult. Even those of us who accept it are engaging in avoidance behaviors because that's what body has learned how to do. It's a coping strategy. So I think there are three things that we talk about in speech therapy, and particularly speech therapy, which affirms the neurodivergent identity of a person who stammers, but is also open to changing the stuttering pattern towards less struggle and more forward flow. And those three acceptance practices, I call them acceptance practices in my work, are, as you said very rightly, voluntary stammering, because that creates that resolves the conflict, right? There is no conflict anymore between my biological social identity and my desired social, like my my innate biological identity and my desired social identity. I'm resolving it. I'm presenting myself consciously as a person who stammers. Second is self-disclosure. And all these things are skills to learn. Like all these things, when we work in speech therapy with people here, we talk about various ways in which you can self-disclose. Let's write scripts in different environments. Let's test these scripts out. All of those kinds of things. And the third pillar that is an acceptance practice, which is absolutely essential, is avoidance reduction. So if you put avoidance reduction, voluntary stammering, self-disclosure, if we put these in our lives in some way, in a mindful, intentional kind of a way, we will resolve this conflict, is the point. This conflict, this conflicted sort of sense of identity that we have. Because ultimately, as Joseph Sheehan said, 30, 40 years ago, that's stammering is basically a problem of the presentation of the self. Without so if you're able to present yourself confidently in communication and comfortably in communication as a person with stammers, in other words, if you can get more comfortable with your stammer, you sort of reached a different point in the stammering experience. So and it's all about resolving this basic identity crisis that we experience on a regular basis.
Quite enlightening. Thank you so much, everyone. So with that, we are quite at the end of our session today. I will just open up the space for 5 minutes for uh, like anyone who has a burning thought, question. So yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll go first. I have a question to Dr. Amit on the first point that he made on the speech therapy, as in not in this part of his talks, but I think 1 hour back, where he mentioned about the focus on speech therapy there in the US or in the UK, how it is. So you did mention a point that the attempt is to lessen the impairment. And the next point you made is even speech pathologists, they're not really certain when it comes to the stammering space. Okay, so that I mean, I'm on one part, on one side, you say that the attempt in speech therapy is to lessen the impairment, and then you're saying that the speech pathologists, they kind of shy away, or they're not very certain when it comes to stammering. Why is that I mean, it seems to be very paradoxical there.
So,
You're on mute. Thanks.
yeah, Pramod. So, I'm going to answer this question as best as I can, try to understand the paradox as well. I think traditionally, because stammering has been seen here from the medical lens, there has been an automatic impulse towards fixing the stammer. And fixing the stammer is been the focus of stammering therapy for a very long time. Most of the research that has been done from the medical lens has been about during 70s, 80s, there were tons of articles, every second article about speech motor control. What is going on in speech motor control? What's going on in speech motor discoordination? How is the respiration, the phonation, the articulation, how that is out of line? So it was all about the body, understanding the stammering from a bodily standpoint. And that also served the basic paradigm that we are going to be, if we understand more about the motor behavior, then we are able to correct the motor behavior. So that has been the focus. Why speech pathologists have been feeling less confident about it is because very often those singular treatment outcomes, which is increased fluency or reduced, in some combination, increased fluency, reduced struggle, reduced frequency of the stammering, if that's the major treatment outcome, they have not been durable outcomes. Because even those of us who attend very intensive speech therapy programs very often revert back to the old way of talking, because the psychosocial impact has not been addressed very much. So the medical model, because it prioritizes fluent speech, also puts a lot of its clinical eggs in one basket, if that makes any sense, right? The treatment outcomes are much more singular if you are chasing fluency, if you're chasing fluent speech. There are two reasons why speech pathologists here have reported that they feel uncomfortable and not very confident in working with people who stammer. One is the low incidence, low prevalence. So you're talking about 5% incidence, approximately 5% of new cases which emerge during childhood between 2 and 5 years of age, and less than 1% prevalence among adults. So you can go through your professional lives without encountering a lot of people who stammer. So it is difficult to get continual experience with people who stammer because they're such a low incidence and low prevalence group. That's one reason. The second reason is stammering is very complex. And it's complex because it is deep. It affects lots of different areas in life, and it is also not straightforward. So if you take the image of the iceberg, looking at stammering as an iceberg, you can have very individual icebergs, right? So you can have an individual iceberg in which there's very little observable stammering behavior. But inside, underneath the waterline, there is a lot of fear, a lot of shame, a lot of anxiety. And one of the reasons we are not able to transfer the increased fluency that we find in clinical spaces, in safe clinical spaces where a speech pathologist is teaching us how to practice these skills, because the environmental variables are completely different. And you have to transfer that in a way that capacity for transferring these particular motor skills into the real world is not to be taken for granted. It has to be cultivated. And a lot of speech therapy programs lack this sort of deep understanding of stammering. Relatedly, the curriculum over the years in graduate school over here, in graduate programs here, has been watered down quite a bit. So students no longer need to have a course in stammering. We just need to show as departments of communication disorders that we are giving people enough opportunities to get that experience. Could be clinical experience, could be through continuing education, it could be through multiple different ways. So clinical training, because American Speech Language Hearing Association opened up its curriculum many years ago, different programs who are struggling resource-wise in different parts of the country here will de-emphasize giving clinical experiences to people in populations that are not easy to get. That's one of the reasons. So that also contributes to less experience. But there's a lot of reasons, some of them structural, some of them because of lack of training, some of them because of lack of exposure. But also, I think connecting to your earlier point about why is it that speech pathologists feel unprepared to work on the speech aspects, is because even when you work on the speech aspects, the results are not durable. The problem is, yes, you can generate. I've seen lots of speech pathologists and a lot of people here who stammer, who will go through a 3 or 4 week intensive program and talk very fluently right afterwards, right? But it's very difficult to maintain that level of fluency in the real world, where the environmental variables are very different, and using a particular technique at a particular point in time when you basically need it is very difficult, especially when the body has a lot of reactivity, emotional reactivity towards speech. So there is a very strong, clear connection between fear and force, right? The more fearful we are feeling, the more fight, flight, freeze responses we are going to generate, which basically means more effort, more elevated muscle tension. And that's going to make speaking much more difficult, using a technique much more tough. So part of it is a very deep understanding of what stammering is, which I think is lacking in some of the curriculum here, partly because of the way the curriculum has been redesigned over the years. Partly it is because of the complexity of the condition itself, and partly it's because of lack of exposure. It's a combination of these 3 or 4 things.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that one. And the best part is, at least the therapists there, they agree that they are not fully equipped. I think that's the beginning, right? So many medical professionals, when it comes to a competitive space, even they get into a flight or a fight mode. At least there they are being authentic that they don't know. Thanks on that, doctor.
Sure. It helps when the surveys are actually very anonymous. So that is also helpful. That you're answering an anonymous survey. You're not going to be identified in your professional capacity and your name there. But thank you. Yatharth, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah. I just want to add on a thing that was talked about way earlier in the podcast about what you were talking about, the giving an example of impediment and a disability. Like if a person doesn't have a leg, that is an impediment. But if he is not able to drive a car, that is a disability. So now let's come to the stammering side of it.
Mhm.
Uh, Having blocks or having a distorted speech is a impediment, but not doing things because of that is a disability, right? So now I want you guys to think it from a perspective, from a different angle, that these disability that we are saying that we are not able to do certain things because of this is because we are not like enlightened enough to that, we can do that. Like if you talk about like if I give you an example, uh in my like in my school days, I thought that there is no job for me. Okay, so that point I thought I am disabled. Okay, but after joining TISA, I got to know that I can face interviews, I can do certain jobs, I can do all of the jobs. This, so that disability, even though that impediment is there, I have shifted that disability into an ability by having the knowledge and having the exposure to different people, to different things. So stammering as a disability can be changed. It's not it's about being knowledgeable enough. It's about being it's not seeing it as an as a disability, and focusing on the bigger picture, that yeah, even with a impediment like stammering, we can do all of the things, and we don't have to see it as a disability. Yeah, that was something I wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, we can reduce the impairment component, we can reduce the disability component if you stammer with full eye contact, if you self-disclose, if you're less emotionally reactive to your stammer, you don't holding back, you avoid less, whether it's because of TISA or speech therapy or the community that you've developed or all of the above, whatever your modality is, whatever the efforts you've made, if you reach a different side of the stammering experience, where it's no longer holding you back, then of course the disability component has been reduced. Yeah, for sure. Nobody's saying anything is permanent. I'm just saying it has the potential to be very disabling for a lot of folks. And certainly there is some aggregate data that has been collected to also show that in these various areas. Niket?
Yeah, so I also actually had a thought around the same topic as well. So what I actually in my experience, I actually have came across a lot of guys whose rate of stammering is way too high. Okay,
With
and
what?
whose rate of stammering is way too higher as compared to
Okay.
what we have. So so sometimes I feel that at least like as per the Indian uh, guidelines, what I checked that if the rate of stammering is above 30% or above like around 30 or 40, I'm not sure the exact number, then it comes under the disability. I somehow agree that that is the right part. Why? Because like if a person is stammering on almost every word or almost on the alternate word, then it is very difficult for the next person to invest that time to hear all the thoughts. Like I'm saying in terms of job and employment and all those things. Then why will the company hire him or hire her? Then like sometimes I feel that it can be a part of disability.
There is a layer in this actually, Aniket, which we can chat about very briefly, which is, and this gets into technical stuff. I don't know if you want to go there at this late stage, but maybe we can explore it a little bit. I'll just say quickly and then we'll move on. There may not be time to sort of go back and forth with too many quick Q&As because we're a little over time. There are two medical classification systems that speech pathologists use to diagnose a particular condition. One is called the ICD, International Classification of Diseases. We're at the ICD-10 right now. There's the 10th iteration of it, 10th version of it. And then the second one is the DSM-5, Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5. These are the two classification systems that are routinely used. And whatever the diagnostic criteria is, if you're following government guidelines, you're using that diagnostic criteria to determine how severe a particular disability is. Stammering in ICD-10 and in DSM-5 is similar and different. In both, it is listed as, certainly now it's listed generally as a childhood onset fluency disorder. It has a particular code. Most speech pathologists in India, if they're following government guidelines, will be using ICD-10. And the diagnostic criteria for severity in ICD-10, which Indian speech pathologists use, severity is determined entirely on the basis of observable behavior. You see what I'm saying? It's determined entirely on the basis of observable behavior. DSM criteria it keeps the observable behavior diagnostic standard in there. Repetitions, prolongation, blocks, having difficulty moving forward, all of those things are part of the DSM criteria as well. But it additionally adds that it leads to anxiety and avoidance. So in ICD-10 diagnostically is silent about adverse impact. DSM-5 includes adverse impact in its particular description. Now, if you're using ICD-10, you're going to be basing severity entirely on what a listener can observe at one point in time or 2 points in time, taking 2 or 3 verbal samples from somebody across different environments, counting the stuttered syllables, describing how frequent tension is, and on the basis of that, deciding if the person is severe, and in the Indian system, severe enough to qualify for accommodations. That doesn't fit the nature of stammering, because stammering is variable, stammering is cyclical, stammering is also lends itself to avoidance. So it is entirely possible that I can go to a speech pathologist's office and have a very fluent day and talk up a storm and be in a very comfortable place and maybe show some stammers in my speech, but because I have an impulse to avoidance, I do that anyway, and I am judged to be less than 40%. What it is not revealing is how is that impacting me, right? I can have a small amount of stammering in my speech, but I can be so conscious of it, so avoidant, that my entire lifestyle is circled around how the hell do I avoid the minefields that I'm going to be experiencing today. That is true adverse impact. If you're not using adverse impact in your diagnostic criteria, you will base the severity rating entirely on observable stuttering behavior, which by definition is missing the boat in the stammering situation because of the variability and the cyclical nature of the stammering. The moment you put adverse impact into it, first of all, it makes your diagnostic instruments much more broad. You're going to be tapping the internal response through a paper pencil scales, and we have lots of them in speech pathology literature. You're also going to be documenting the observable stuttering behavior, but also noting in your diagnostic report that this is because stammering is variable and cyclical. We're not sure, we're not entirely confident that this is the actual representative stammering pattern. But you will talk about adverse impact based on the other diagnostic tests that you've run, which shows that the person is truly constrained in the quality of life. And frankly, they should qualify for accommodations on the basis of that, because observable stuttering doesn't tell you anything about adverse impact.
Yeah, I agree on. So it makes sense. Yeah. So impact and okay. So you're saying that impact is the only thing where we can actually say that whether the.
Well, it's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing actually that matters in therapy as well. Can you show through your treatment outcomes at the end of a 4 or 5 week or 4 or 5 month speech therapy process that you've been able to improve outcomes? If you are going to be focusing entirely on fluency, you're putting all your clinical eggs in one basket. If you are spreading it out, like I can stammer as I did and I'm doing right now, but before I never used to make eye contact, but now I make eye contact with with you when I stammer. I never used to voluntarily stammer, but now I'm voluntarily stammering. I never used to know how to manage my blocks, but now I've learned some techniques like pull-outs where I can actually move through my blocks with a little bit ease. These are all very positive developments, but I'm still a disfluent person. I am feeling more empowered, but I'm still a disfluent person. So from a treatment outcome standpoint, if you're only observing my stammering behavior, you'll still see stammering. But inside, I'm feeling a lot more confident. I'm feeling a lot more in control. I'm feeling that my stammering experience is more manageable. I'm more outgoing. I'm doing all the things that or most of the things that I could not do earlier. Those are much broader treatment outcomes. And I think people are well served. We as a community are much better served through a much broader set of treatment outcomes than focusing entirely on the speech behavior, which comes again back to the social and the medical model. Focusing on impairment, reducing impairment is coming from the medical model, because the idea is that impairment and the disability are connected. And one way to reduce disability is by reducing the impairment. What the social model is doing, or a more broader set of treatment outcomes are doing, is they're acknowledging the fact that impairment is certainly there. It's a lifetime incurable, or at least right now, no cure for the condition. So navigating life, managing life as a person with stammers becomes really important. And it's entirely possible. TISA is showing us it is entirely possible. One of the reasons I'm very attracted to TISA, when I got very attracted to TISA and got in touch with it, is because I think it is doing things. The curriculum, the MOOC curriculum or the TOPG is including things that are evidence-based. These are the things that have always worked for the stammering community. self-disclosure, voluntary stammering, avoidance reduction. These are the ways, whether it's a personalized care context through which change is happening, like speech therapy, or a more community-based concept or a peer context in which change is happening, like TISA. The principles are very similar. So I think we should feel very lucky that despite the fact that we don't have a lot of trained speech pathologists in the US or in India or in most parts of the world to work with this population, we have a platform through which we ourselves can empower ourselves to get on a different side of the stammering experience.
So, hi, Tapan, can you just share it very briefly because we are running out of time?
I have a very small question to Dr. Bajaj. As you said, once a stammerer, he is always a stammerer, so that relapse will happen anytime. But if you see in our there are so many celebrities are there, like actors, like Hrithik Roshan and Sharat Kelkar, and Mr. Bean, and say Bruce Willis, Julia Roberts. So they say they are all actually but severe stammerer. But how they manage, still are they stammering? Are they just simply hiding their stammering, or they just fully recovered from the stammering? So how they manage?
Yeah, so your initial question was about once the stammerer, always the stammerer. So yes and no. Yes, because I think because we are neurologically, genetically wired a little bit differently, our bodies are wired a little bit differently for producing speech. There's a lot of evidence of that. We typically, most of us retain some propensity to stammer. Even as we get older, and there's also a lot of anecdotal evidence that over time, over the years, people who stammer tend to experience more forward flow, less emotional reaction, all of those things. I think a lot of these things come with age. You sort of realize as you get older that certain things are part of you. You take them for granted. You move on with your life. I think when you're younger and you're going through a lot of transitions in life, finding a job, finding a life partner, the stakes are pretty high. But when you get past a certain stage, I think a lot of us come to levels of acceptance which we are less likely to do when we're younger, unless you're a TISA member, and then it's a whole other journey for you. But so yes, so yes to that. I think that is true. Once a stammerer, also stammerer, always a stammerer, in the sense that we'll retain our propensity to stammer. But stammering is malleable behavior. It's malleable behavior. It's subject to change. It changes. Even when you don't do anything, it keeps changing because it's variable and it's cyclical. And certainly there are very good forms of speech therapy that are available. Even with the medical model, there are some very, very strong, very good, very, very evidence-based therapies that are available. If you're a rich person, like a lot of these stars are, you can actually, and these celebrities are, you can get those niche, how will you say that word? Speech therapies for yourself. So obviously they have a different level of help that is available to them that is not available to the regular person. The other thing I would venture to say is that there is something about a professional space, performing in a professional space, which for some of us gets us out of a highly conditioned pattern for a while. I'm in that category too. I mean, I used to, when I was in school, all through the middle school grades and high school grades, I did a lot of public speaking. I was part of the drama team. I was in elocution. I was in debates. I got several awards because I never used to stammer when I was on stage. And that's because I was playing a different character. We would have noticed this even in ourselves. If we start speaking with a different accent, or if it gets us out temporarily from a conditioned particular pattern. So my hypothesis, this is just my hypothesis, is that if you are used to a performing space, you have a natural advantage because I think you are able to see you're able to get out there, speak a little bit more, be open to expressing yourself a little bit more, work on your communication skill a little bit more. All of those things are going to empower you, in addition to the fact that you have very good speech therapy available. In addition to the fact that as you're getting older, you are getting a little bit more desensitized to the experience overall relative to somebody who might be younger.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you, sir.
Amit. Yeah, I mean, Tapan, yeah, thank you so much, Tapan, for, asking this question as well. So we have reached the time limit and we have exceeded it so much. So I thank everybody here, Rusha, all the participants and the, audience. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Good day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.